Absolutely could be strutnet representing. They are real models. So they are the people that represent who we are in reality, in this work, and have a long history to define who we are today. So, they are our barrio models. They just coined themselves the barrio models. So, one, I believe that people hate us because they ain't us. So one of the reasons why I think people sometimes have stereotyped cholas and cholos is because they don't understand our culture. They don't understand who we are. They don't understand what we represent. They don't understand what we fight for. And so today I'm going to redefine what that chola stigma stereotype is. And then we're also going to talk about the fashion that has come across generations that is more than just a look. It's more than lip liner, it's more than eyeliner, it's a lot more than all the things that you see in social media. Traditionally, the elements of a chola style has been influenced over generations by our ancestors of very powerful and strong women, one of them sitting in this room today. When we talk about our past, we have also historically challenged assimilation. That means we don't want to fit in. We're proud to stand out. We were born to stand out. I get tired of people trying to put me in a box and make me form-fit into something. I don't know how many times people have given me the Harvard jokes when I don't know something, like, okay, Harvard, well, guess what, yo? I am not afraid to learn and unlearn, right? Like, and so stop trying to put me in this box of like I'm supposed to know all things because I went to a certain school. Because I promise you, it doesn't matter what school you go to, you do not know all things. You have to be a constant student, a constant learner, a constant teacher of the work that you have. So assimilation means they're trying to make you be like everybody else. It's the melting pot theory. So the melting pot theory says we're going to put everybody here in the United States into this melting pot, just like if you go to the Cheesecake Factory. I'm assuming, I really don't know. But I heard they have like this cheese fondue dip thing that you can dip things into. So that melting pot makes everything the same. You melt it and it becomes one thing. And it usually becomes the one thing that is the dominant culture of a society, of your town, of your city, of your state, of your country, the list goes on. It represents a dominant culture. It does not represent who you are, what you bring, the beauty that is you into that. So instead, in Chicano studies, we like to make a caldo, a soup, because everything gets to stay what it is while creating something new. Right? So the meat gets to stay it gets to stay meat, the vegetables get to stay a vegetable, and then we create a broth. Right? So that is when we are fighting for against assimilation, we're saying we don't have to look like or sound like or be like everybody else. We can be our own thing. Patriarchy. Patriarchy, of course, is that we are saying that we know this is a man's world. To this day, men make more per the same job, per the same circumstances than a woman does in the workplace. And that's unfair. It's called a gender gap, right? The challenge is there's so much that goes into patriarchy because men are part of that dominant culture in our society, right? So we have to unlearn some of that. In our indigenous culture, the matriarch many times is what holds power in our families, what holds power in our communities, what holds power in our culture. So like appreciating and loving the women who have brought you life, who have been the creators, that is important. And then racism, of course, we are always battling. We are always fighting to be anti-racist, which means against racism. That means it takes active purpose. You have to want to fight against racism. You have to acknowledge it exists, and you have to fight against it. That's how equity happens. You can't just be complacent and say that's the way things have always been. You can't just say, well, you can't change it. All the things that have been told to us generations after generations, but guess what? It has been generation after generation who has survived, who brought us here today. So there are people who have died, prayed, sacrificed, so that you can live, so that you can be presente, so that you can exist. And many times we forget that. We forget all the struggles of the generations before us who have brought us to this place. So be grateful for those elders, those ancestors, those people who have fought and died for you to be present here today. They have overcome challenges you will never dream of, right? And the hope is you erase the challenges that come for the next generation. That's your job. Our job is to continue it, right? The next generation keeps it going. So today we're going to take a look at this quick video so that I can tell a little bit about Chicana Fashion Show. Anyone heard of Me Too? Yeah. Oh gosh, they make me laugh so hard. So here's some Chola talk for you.
Okay, first of all, no, you don't got this.
To Barbie? That doesn't sound shit. Like they're choking her, bro. Like,
What are you talking about? They're not
They're
even that big.
this.
Yeah, like I hate this.
First of all,
I guess
she she is not the original Black Barbie. I'm sorry, Lil Kim, you're the queen. That's the real Black Barbie.
You're not gonna find any Hannah wearing like
Mochino?
Who she is a bad in the game. I'm not gonna say she's not, I'm not gonna, but nah.
Yeah, America, this is not a chola. Remember?
Come on.
That's Rihanna.
What the 818? She got an 818 on her? Rihanna got an 818. What she know about 818? She don't know about 818.
Barbados.
She don't know nothing about 818. What does she know about 818? That's tripping me out now.
Is this Photoshop?
The teardrop? Yeah, we saw that.
And it's the wrong spot.
It's the wrong spot.
What is that?
It's like a balloon on it. Like birthmark in her face.
I don't know, I should put a little teardrop right here because I killed the taco off before I got over there.
If you're gonna do it right.
Yeah, it's not even correct.
Hire me, I'll style you.
That's Jenny from the block. I believe she'll be the one coming up to me telling me where you from in my own. She looks sexy as in this video. I'm not gonna lie,
Out of all the pictures I've seen, this is the best.
she got a teardrop too. Then it's like the style nowadays, huh?
But she's got the eyebrows, she's got the eyeshadow, the lip liner, the hoop earrings, the nails. I mean, who didn't back in the days get their nails all long? Yeah, I'll give her a pass.
She gets a gold star.
She gets the Chola stamp of approval.
So you can watch more Me Too. They're just funny. They're funny to watch. I'm just so sorry. We're gonna pause this real quick. This is why I need definitely IT to support me. And my computer doesn't reach out here, and I can't stand in a corner. You don't put Velia in a corner, even if her name is Dr. Rincon. We have today for you an amazing group of models, of great, real models, people in my circle, women who are amazing and are representing other amazing women in our culture and in our community. Myself, y'all met me earlier, I'm Dr. Velia Rincon. I am representing the OG Cholas today of the 80s and 90s. I represent the girls who both wore big hair and, oh gosh, I got a beat song, yes! That's my godson on music right there. So we have, for generations, been influencing style, music. People want to be us. They just love the way we look. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter what decade we live in, people be borrowing our style. Sometimes you go to different countries. In Japan, they have an entire Chola culture. So you know that this is something that people can make profit of, they can culturally assimilate, they can steal our vibe, but overall, they ain't us. And so be proud if you come from Chola culture, if you come from Cholas, because ultimately, we are some people that are constantly being replicated in fashion, in music, in the industry. As you saw, all these artists that copy us, including Gwen Stefani, and there can be cultural appropriation, so you have to be careful, right? Learn what that is and learn how not to do that and how to do it with respect, right? And so a person who is highly educated or has the aptitude for study, we have defined that as a scholar. That that, if you look it up, I think language is very powerful. So when you look up words, they mean things, right? Like we use them all the time, we don't even think about it, but when you look at the actual definition, as an English language learner, I had to constantly walk around with a dictionary and be like, what are they saying? So constantly looking up words. Even when I went to graduate school, when I was at Harvard, I brought that dictionary with me. I'm like, I don't understand what y'all are saying. I need a translator. In our culture, we also speak Galo. So I speak multiple languages, including what we call street language, right? Like the hood language. We are absolutely have to code switch even when we're in our own communities or neighborhoods. So that takes academia, that takes knowledge, that takes expertise. So Chola subculture goes way back in history and time, both influencing political, social, economic, you name it. All the isms that exist out there and discrimination, we have been on the front lines of battling all those fronts. So the rejection that they received from mainstream society further fueled our rebellious attitude. This, I keep wanting to sing. I hear the song in the back. I'm like, elbows up, side to side. This developed in the following decades. In the 90s, Chola style was heavily influenced by the 80s, so giving respect all the time to the generation that comes before us. I respect those who grew up in the 80s and influenced us in the 90s when we were growing up in middle school and high school. Created a style popular worldwide. We knew how powerful we were. So always, when you go back, think about what it means to be a scholar, and if you don't fit into that, this academic definition of what people think a scholar should be, redefine it. Make up your own story, change the rules, and then change the game so that the next generation has more access and opportunity. Next up, we have, from the very beginning, Mexica Chola. So originating or occurring naturally in a particular place is what the definition is when you look up indigenous. So that means of this land. It means we have always been here. It means that she represents the land, the dirt, the soil, the blood, everything that we have inherited as part of our Mexicano, Chicano, Latinx, whatever you call yourself Hispanic. I hope it's Chicano and you join us in Chicano studies and we talk more about identity development. But ultimately, she represents who we are as a Mexica people. More than 15,000 years in Turtle Island. Our ancestors go way beyond centuries, way beyond any kind of historical footprint here in the United States, or in what they call now the Americas. 1492, if you think about it, that is only how long ago? Who does math? Oh, none of y'all do math? Over 500 years? Over 500 what? 29? Jeez, we're already at 529. I remember when we were reading in our Chicano studies classes 500 years, and so now we're even at 529. So since even Columbus supposedly did not discover the Americas, right? Ultimately, we have been here way before that. It's called pre-Columbian era, where for thousands and thousands of years, our people were here first. We are still here. They are our foundation and our ancestors who speak through us. Thank you. This is Katrina Gomez. Katrina also works at El Centro de Quinto Sol. She runs the center on the east side if y'all want to ever see her. No? Oh, she hasn't worked there for a while. She did. And I remember that because I used to work at Quinto Sol. So you got generational Quinto Sol folks in the room. Next up, we have, I keep forgetting I gotta come hit the button. Oh, come back. Did I pass it? Oh, I did the wrong one. Okay, here we go. We gotta go back and forth. Next up, we have the Revolutionary Chola. La Adelita is a soltera. She's a soldier. She is the woman woman who not only, did the cooking, raised the kids, did all the things that we have to do as women, but also cared for the wounded and actually fought the battles against the Mexican government forces during the revolutions. So in time, the Adelitas were used to mean the word solderas, soldiers in general, in this movement. Today, we are soldiers in this movement. They speak through us. They work through us. The Adelitas are our inspiration to fight in this struggle, even when it's hard, even when you want to give up. Even when you don't want to get up at 6, 7, 8 a.m., whatever time you got to be here this morning, right? Like you do it. And you do it because of her strength. So in time, the word Adelita was used for all solderas who became a vital force in the Revolutionary War efforts. Today, it is argued that the Adelita came to be an archetype of a woman warrior in Mexico, a symbol of action and inspiration. Please give it up for Felicia Otero! Now we go back. Next up, we have our real model, the street smart Chola! La Pachuca, we call her. So La Pachuca is our mothers, our grandmothers who grew up during the 1930s to like the 1950s. We fight their style so hard. Like our generation of Cholas looked at this generation, and we're like, those are bad rucas. Like we want to look like that. So from the big hair to many of us, to like the clothing, to just the swagger, the style, just the idea of showing up in a man's world, in a man's suit, even if you wanted to, right? Like to be able to show up in any way that is true to yourself, that's what these women represented to us. From 1930 to 1950s, these cholas dressed in suits. The Pachuco was an important part of the young Chicano eggs culture. Mexican-American communities had a long fight for equity ahead of them when it was the 1930s. We had everything from like the Zoot riots where we were being criminalized and there was racial profiling that today have even set precedent to what happens in our world. The fight for systemic racism on all fronts. Today we have Bernie Esquivel-Tennant, who is also a social worker in Pueblo in our community. She works from racial profiling to the school-to-prison pipeline to being the keeper of our community. Without these social workers, without these proud women, smart women, street smart women that have not just college degrees, but University of La Calle, street degrees, to be able to help our community, to navigate those systems. The mothers of all mothers that keep our families together. Give it up for Bernie Esquivel-Tennant. Next up, the protester Chola. Take it down. Take it down. This protester Chola is a nod to our mother, Shirley Romero Otero. She is a symbol of the civil rights movement in the 1960s, 1970s, all the way up to today. La Libertad. She is the woman who goes out and is not afraid, unapologetically unafraid to go out and teach the lessons that need to be taught, to speak, to have voice, who are unafraid to make sure that they listen when they don't want to listen, when they close doors on us, when they say we can't, when they try to make our lives harder. So this is the woman who's on the front lines and usually the headlines in the newspapers. The state of being free within a society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority is one way of life, behavior, or political views. That's liberty, that's liberatory consciousness. So we know the system sucks. And we are doing our work every day to help dismantle oppressive systems. But we still have to show up at work tomorrow for that 8 a.m. meeting with the most racist dude ever. So thank you to Lucia, Soy la Libertad. I love my friends. They're willing to do whatever. Okay, next up we have the Chola Mogul.
Oh, yes.
Chola series, she does not ask for a seat at the table. She fills her whole goddamn table. She makes sure that we know that as feminist advocates for social, political, and legal and economic rights for women start with us. They do not wait for men or anybody else to show us what's up. They are building generational wealth, one person, one community, one entire culture at a time. ¡Que viva la raza! Give it up for la feminista, Angelina Otero Romero. Oh, Rivera. I just named her Shirley's name. Angelina Otero Rivera. And my best friend since second grade. And if you want to build a house and your home legacy, she is a real estate mogul as well. I'm going to remind you too of this because it's important. When I was growing up, we had nothing. And I hated moving all the time. I hate that we didn't have a home address, like that we didn't have a permanent home as field workers who were migrating everywhere all the time. All I wanted was to buy my mom a house when I grew up. All I wanted was like sustainability, like to know there's food in the fridge, that the lights will turn on when you hit the switch. That's all I wanted. I think that's minimum, like what we ask for in our life and for the quality of life for our families. And I had to find out that that had to become my why. Every time I wanted to quit school, every time I wanted to quit life in general, like forget all this is too hard. I reminded myself of my why. And my why at that time was like, all I want to do is buy my mom a house. When I graduated from high school from here, I was able to do that. From high school, from college. Not high school, that would have been really dope. But from college, I got to buy my mom a house. And it's thanks to Angelina Otero and her knowledge of real estate. Generational wealth. Now we own 3 homes, everybody. Next up, we have the Generation Z Chola. This little chica but also represents this new generation.
¿Qué parte no entiendes cuando te digo que no? La N o la
when it comes to the way that
tu
makes us
tiempo
better
se
and do
acabó.
better in this work. Like she's the one who drops knowledge on me all the time. Like, Mama, we don't say that no more. No, Mama, this is how we do it. So this is a young woman who represents this generation reaching adulthood in the second decade of the 21st century. She's perceived with mastering the internet at a very young age. Y'all grow up with electronics. We had beepers. Y'all have the real thing on your phones. You can like look up whatever you want, whenever you want. Social media everywhere. Y'all are the ones that are going to be the influencers. Y'all are the ones that are going to reach the masses. Y'all are the ones that are going to make the change. These budding feminists grew up socially conscious and unwilling to be complacent with the status quo. This generation of Chicanitas are quick to call you on your isms and your phobias, and they make us better every single day. Please give it up for my daughter, Angeline Maya! She also often checks her father at the dinner table.
Yes.
My husband gets caveman sometimes when my daughter's like, nah, that's not happening. The matriarch Chola. Up next, we have La Reina. I need a brief, like, I feel like everywhere I go, it's just have a soundtrack to my life. I go to work and you're like, yes, I'm going to work, yes. So this is La Reina. This is a great honor and homage that I have that today, like, well, even the day that I asked her, I'm like, it would be an honor if you would be in our Chola fashion show. Your mom means so much to so many of us. Like, can you come be a part of this? And she said, well, I don't know, it's gonna be a hard day. And I said, absolutely. It's gonna be a hard day for all of us. So if you're not ready, we're not ready. And this chingona showed up. She's like, I got my mama's clothes on. I'm gonna represent from the moment, like at 6 a.m. She was like texting me. She's like, it's gonna be a great day at the conference. I'm like, goddamn, is that Rita? So we are very excited to welcome today powerful woman who is the head of our family or tribe. We all know that Rita held the Chicano movement together here in Pueblo. We all know that we are all here because of her today. So Rita J. Martinez has not only raised most of us in this room, but led by example. She was on the front line of every fight and taught us to do the same. Her strength gives us the ability to keep and ensure that the movement continues. El movimiento sigue. Through this conference and so much more, today we follow her daughter, our subcomandante. Y que viva Rita. Everybody give it up for Neva Lucia Martinez. So many names. I love that all these Chicanos, they got like 20 names. All of them mean so much too, right? Like, going back to Lucia's name, Soy la Libertad, I am liberation, right? Like, her mom is dope for her to come up with that name, right? Like, my daughter's name is Maya. It means a creative force in anything you do. So, always be thoughtful of your name. When people say it wrong, you correct them. It may not come out right on their tongue, but you correct them, and then they will practice, and they will learn how to say your name. Because your name is important. It's a part of your identity, it's a part of who you are. So it doesn't matter how you identify. When I was going to school, there was all the different groups. Everybody had their own thing. However you identify, be proud of that and show up in the way that's true to yourself. When I was going to school, I graduated most likely to start the next LA riots. Those who went to my session, Books Not Bars, heard about this already. But in high school, they thought that was going to be a bad thing, right? They said, you know, Velia, you didn't win this prize, or most likely to be president, or whatever. You know, I think I should have won all of those awards in the yearbook. They said, you got most likely to start the next LA riots. And at the time, Rodney King trial was on, and LA was up in fire because people were protesting the mistreatment and police brutality in this case and in cases all over. And right now, like, you guys get to see it constantly because there's videos and phones everywhere. When we were growing up, people just said we're making that up, like that's not true, that isn't real or whatever. So people are like, yeah, LA's on fire, you know, Velia's always hot, always heated, most likely to start the next LA riots. And they thought it was a negative. I was like, no, I'm gonna flip that. Anything people try to say about me that was a negative, I always flip that. They're like, oh, she don't speak English. I'm like, damn straight, I speak 2 languages. How many you speak? I speak more than 2 if you count Carlo and all the other things that I know how to say. But every time that they told me something was negative about myself, I turned it into a positive. So when I was told that I was going to be most likely to start the next LA riots, I said, down straight. I will burn it down for my people. And they were like, okay, well then. So the idea is, no matter what people say about you. They said I wasn't going to graduate from high school. They said, of course, I wasn't going to finish college because I became a single mom. They said a million things. And you have to change that story for yourself. You have to change that narrative for yourself because nobody's going to do it for you. Right? The system works because it's built to do that, what it's doing right now. We have to change that system. And so today, in honor of all these beautiful Chicanas, I want to have them all come up, or hold on. Isaiah, may I have you come up real quick? Because this is going to be in the way. And we're going to pull this to the side just so that you can see one more time the beauty that exists on this stage before I move on. At this time, can I have my real models please stand up? And I need my photographers to get up there and get some pictures of these ladies because these are some brilliant, badass, amazing and beautiful women that represent who we are as a community, and not only in our history, but in our everyday work. Please give it up for my real model, Chola!
We run this mother, yeah. Girls, we run this mother, yeah.
At this time, representing today the Cholas of this community, of this work. This woman right here, I was in 2nd grade, and my daughter, Lena, my best friend, met me on the playground because it was like my first week of school or something like that, and I had just moved from Loma, and Loma was for kids in our community who couldn't speak English. They would bus us from Frutas, a little farming town, to Loma. And when I got to come back to school in our community in Fruta, I didn't know nobody. I hardly spoke English still. And this amazing little beautiful young lady, Angelina, walked up to me and started being my friend. And sometimes that's all it takes, is just one person to like change your life and to make you better. And so little Angelina came up, and she was that person that I always looked up to, even though she's like 4 foot nothing. I don't know if you saw it up there, but she's this tiny little thing. I'm 5'6", I tower over her, but I've always looked up to her every single day, and she comes from this woman right here. So this woman, Shirley, I met her because I was now the best friend. And so I would come over and sleep over, and I would come over and be like, hey, you wanna feed me? You wanna let me hang out at your house? All of a sudden, Shirley's like, yeah. And when we go to these conferences, you're gonna dance. You're now the Cuatro Amigas, and you're gonna dance baile folclórico for everybody. So there I was learning how to do baile folclórico. I'm like, okay, Shirley. And then all of a sudden, she's like, you're gonna lead a workshop. I'm like, what? I'm like elementary, middle school, high school. She's like, you're gonna lead a workshop. We need a student voice. We need young people to speak. We need you guys to be the leaders. Constantly putting me on the stage. So when people say, Velia, how come you can just get up there and speak? Because I had a woman like Shirley, who was my real model, who taught me what it is to have a voice, to speak up even when it's hard, to love me unconditionally, to support me through no matter what I went through in my life, and to constantly push me to be and do better. So let's give it up for Shirley Romero Otero. Oh, we're gonna take a picture. I love that there's also photo ops. Can you all follow me as well and archive like everything in my life? So in honor of Shirley, I just want to give my 5 minutes to her, because when we went to conferences, we got to hear her speak all the time. And y'all don't get to hear her speak. So I need her to drop some wisdom right now. I need her to share with you anything that she wants about this work, these conferences. Rita, I leave the floor to you. I defer the rest of my time to you all.
Thank you, Velia, Dr. Velia. I just want to say to the organizers of this conference, it's really emotional because Rita was my best friend for 4 years. Not only was she my best friend, but we organized together across the street, across the state, in Pueblo, all over the Southwest. We traveled everywhere. We raised our kids together. Her kids are my kids. So in honor of Rita, I thank you for coming. You know, when we walked into this place this morning, I figured we'd have 200 people. To the organizers of this conference, to all of you, because it takes so many people to put something like this together. To all the organizers of this conference, I applaud you. I applaud you for the great work and recruitment that you did to bring so many young people into this building today on this campus. When you walk around this campus, act like you own it because it's yours. This is a Hispanic Serving Institute. Own it. To the young people in the room, to all the young people, I happened to bring 7 boys today because my girls in Blue Mountains were busy. But to the young people in this community, in this room, know that you are so fortunate to be able to be on this campus and taking in these workshops. And I know for many of you, it may be the first time and some of this stuff may be over your head, but know that this is going to continue. I feel really old in here today, in a good way, and I'm 66 years old and I own it. I earned my gray hair, I own my age. I look at so many, including Junior right here, and Dr. Velia and Victoria, and all of these young people that Rita planted seeds, that we planted those seeds, many of us, the elders, Dario, all these people that are in here, Debbie, Denise, all of these people that are your elders today, you know, now the kids that we mentored, that we would bring to conferences, they are now organizing the conferences. So to the young people, to the young Chicanos, regardless of what you call yourself, regardless of what label you wear, when they see us, they identify us by the color of our skin. Today, in this country, with the Republicans and their leadership, they would say that this is critical race theory. They don't want you to learn this stuff. They don't want you to understand who you are and where you came from. These ladies sitting up here were once young students like you were, and look at them now. They are successful parents and members of their community in whatever they want to do without losing their identity, without going out into the world and thinking and acting that you're white, because you're not. You come from a history and a legacy of struggle. Your ancestors, whether you call yourself Chicano, Mexicano, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. When you put us all together, we all come from the same background. I know that. I've been an ethnic studies teacher and a teacher in general for 30 years, so I know what I'm talking about. When you don't get what you get in these conferences, you're never going to get them in your books. You're never going to get them in your classrooms. And now we've got good teachers in those classrooms, but we get criticized. I'm glad I'm out of the classroom, because I don't want the hassle of everybody trying to dictate to me what I should be teaching in my class. But that's what's happening. You are the hope for this country. You are the hope for Pueblo. You are the next generation that is going to make things better and tear apart the racism and the bigotry and all of that ugly stuff that exists in our country today. The BIPOC community has made gains. We are looking to you to learn your history. Go back after this conference, sit down with your parents or your grandparents, and you tell them what you learned here today. And you start that conversation. And then you reach out to the mentors that were here today so they can continue to teach you. You live in Pueblo. You live in one of the best communities in the state because you have such a strong tie to Chicano history. Learn who you are, where you come from, and use that as your foundation to propel yourself forward. You don't all have to go to college, but you all have to get some kind of training after high school, so you're not living from paycheck to paycheck. Believe me, we know this. I wish I would have known what my daughters know about finance. I would have been a millionaire that would have taken care of all the homeless people in this country, because that's what I would do if I won the lottery. So continue coming to these conferences. Continue to question what you learn in school, especially in history. You have a right to question your teachers when you don't understand or you don't agree with the content that you're being taught. And let me tell you, we are all being taught not our history, not the truth. And if you don't know your history, if you don't know where you came from, they expect you, the macro culture, the white community expects you to stay dumb, ignorant, and complacent. And we're not. We are smart. We are determined. We are hardworking. It is possible to achieve everything that you can. One last thing. The one thing that stands in everybody's way today is fentanyl and the opioids and the drugs that are taking and strangling our community, including the community that I come from in San Luis. So many parents are not around. I'm not a teacher, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a Chicana leader. I am a surrogate mother to the kids that I work with, and I know my place. I know that. Young people, please, please, stay away from the drugs and the fentanyl. It used to be that if your friend gave you a joint, you had no problem smoking it. You can't do that. In my community, 5 people were impacted from one family of fentanyl. 5 people, including an 18-year-old boy who took a joint from a friend laced with fentanyl. Well, guess what? There's no coming back from death. That is the only obstacle that I see standing in the way of our brown and our BIPOC community, is those drugs. And if you really want to know, there's a way now that you can check to see if any drug that you're taking has fentanyl. Take advantage of those resources. Remember, education is the key and the equalizer, and I don't mean just book smart.
what you learn in the streets is every bit as important. 3 of my daughters are sitting up here. My 4th one is in New York City as we speak. Every one of these girls was expected to go to college, but not just that. They were expected to become street smart. And you better be street smart, because if you're not street smart, the world is going to take you down. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of where you came from. If you don't know your history, learn that. Go back and ask the elders in your family. And remember that the only obstacle that you put in your path is the one that you allow to stay there. Go over it, go under it, go around it, but make sure that you pick good mentors that will follow you, that will help you, that will support you. That's how we all get to where we are. Thank you for coming to this conference. Make sure you thank the sponsor that brought you, and more importantly, the women and the men that organized this conference. You have over 400 students here. That says something about your school, about the people that brought you, about the community that you live in, that you've got people that care and have worked to put this conference together. Never underestimate the power of the gatherings that we had here. For 20 years, me and my daughters in my community put together these conferences with the people from Pueblo. They would travel to Grand Junction, then we'd go to the one in Denver, and now it's here in Pueblo. Understand the value and the power that comes with being a person of color, with being someone who can speak 2 languages, and never be ashamed. Never, ever, ever be ashamed of who you are. Your accent, the color of your skin, where you come from, irregardless of how much money your family makes. You matter. Each and every one of you matter. And to the girls, because I'm a mom, because I'm a mom of 4 girls, because I'm a woman, never, never, ever allow a man or anyone else to put you under their thumb. You are much more than that. Do not allow anybody to treat you like a second-class citizen, because I gave birth to my daughters. They're not anybody's punching bag. They're not to be abused. They are to be loved, respected, and supported. Que viva nuestra raza! Que viva! Que viva Rita Martinez! Que viva! Que vivan los jóvenes de nuestra comunidad. Long live the youth of our community. Que viva!